All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dave Clement with MDR. I'm the Digital Products Director over here. And joining me today is Sean McLeod, and he's in charge of the deployments of all our digital advertising here at MDR.
Hello, everyone.
So today, I just wanted to go over a couple of things real quick. We are a heavily attended webinar today, which is awesome. But if anybody has any questions, you'll have a chat box in the right corner, I believe, of your display. Any questions come up, please type them in there. We're going to do our best at the end of this webinar to answer any questions that anybody has, but any questions that we aren't able to get to, we will respond to, okay? And we can see who asked those questions, so if we're not able to get to that question during the webinar, you will get an answer from us in the next day or two, okay? And I do believe we'll be posting a recording of this webinar as well in the future. So once again, welcome to MDR's preview of our soon-to-be released Digital Trends Report, where we really dug into a lot of our deployment data over here at MDR for both our email deployments of our clients as well as our web advertising for our clients. So let's go through the agenda real quick. So what are we going to be talking about today? First, we'll talk a little bit about the email deliverability rates. We'll also talk about email engagement rates. So those are the opens and the clicks, and we break it down by industry and peer groups. We'll also talk about device usage. And the question I get all the time, days of the week and time of day for the best engagement. And we'll also talk about display advertising. Now, once again, this is a preview. You know, we couldn't possibly, in an hour times, go through our total report today. This is just to give you guys some high-level insights and that we've seen. And really, we're really hoping that everybody that attends this webinar today can walk away with 2 or 3 things that they can start implementing to improve their digital marketing efforts right away. So let's get going. So let's talk a little bit about the data set that we're working with today, okay, for email. So this analysis comes from almost 400 million delivered prospecting emails that we deliver for our clients over here at MDR, and that consists of about 20,000 unique campaigns across a little over 1,300 clients. So a pretty significant data set, okay? I do want to take a second to talk about, you know, our prospecting emails, okay? We are ultimately doing top-of-funnel promotional emails for our clients. So that's a little different than, let's say, a triple opt-in informational newsletter, okay? We're really focused on promotional emails for our clients. So I just want to frame that a little bit. So let's take a second just to talk about some definitions, because you'll see in today's presentation, but also our report, we mentioned certain things on a pretty consistent basis, and it's really important that we're all on the same page as far as why we use certain things and really what they mean, okay? One thing that I consistently run into clients is talking about delivery rate, okay? What delivery rate is an email being sent out and actually making it to that recipient, okay? We don't know if it's in the inbox. We don't know if it's in the spam folder. We just know that the recipient received it. Okay, this is much different than inbox placement, okay, because we get that question asked all the time. And I do want to take 2 seconds to talk about inbox placement. There's a ton of tools out there. I use them. I love them. They're great, okay, but I just like to frame those tools a little bit, okay? Ultimately, what all those tools do is build mailboxes and deliver emails to those mailboxes on different platforms or different IPs, and they ultimately seed and score how their placement is going. Now, these tools are great to get a gauge, okay? So if you're using a tool like that and you see, hey, I have a 70% inbox placement, hey, you're probably not having a problem, or an 80%, you're probably not having a problem with inbox placement. Now, conversely, if you see you're getting a 20% inbox placement, okay, you have a problem, and you need to be looking at your creative and the IPs you're sending through and all that fun stuff, okay? But there isn't a tool out there that is 100% accurate and can say to you definitively, your inbox placement was 82.356%, okay? They're meant to be a gauge. And they're extremely valuable. Once again, I use them, but I always like to frame that with folks, okay? They're meant to be a gauge, meant to give you some red flags and see if there's a problem, okay? Another thing that we will talk about in this report, both today and in the actual report, is totals and uniques, okay? One isn't better than the other, and one, they just tell you different things, okay? A lot of times you'll see in a report totals opens or total clicks, so that's a lot different than uniques, okay? Totals are great because they tell you a lot about how people are engaging with the overall creative, okay? So a total is me going to an email and opening it 10 times, okay? So one person, but 10 opens. Or me opening the email and clicking on something 10 times. So once again, one person, 10 clicks. That's great because it's showing engagement with the overall marketing material, and you're also tracking devices, times of day, forwarding, things like that, which is extremely valuable. Now, unique's a little bit different. So that's one person, one open, a unique open, or one person, one click, a unique click. Now, that's extremely valuable because that metric shows you the overall engagement of your audience. So that one individual is opening your emails, okay? So once again, one isn't better than the other. They just tell you different things that are extremely valuable for your, to inform your overall email marketing. So without further ado, let's talk about email delivery rates a little bit. And we looked at the past 3 years, so 2015, 2016, and 2017. And this is what we saw. And there's a few things going on here. We broke it down by higher ed and K through 12. So in 2015, actually a lot of things happened, and I'm sure a lot of people saw it on their own end, is that honestly the days of just sending out 1 million emails to a promotional list and expecting good deliverability went away, okay? Email service providers have really improved as far as how they take email in for folks and get the proper email to people. So, you know, back in 2015 for K through 12, our average delivery rate going in, once again, remember, getting to the person was a little under 90%. Higher ed was a little higher at a little over 91%. Now, over the years, that's really improved significantly. You know, in 2017, K through 12, we're almost 94%, 93.6%, and higher ed, we're at 97.14%. So as you can see, over time, that's really improved a lot. Now, there's a few things that are going on there, okay? You know, one on the MDR side is technology improvements and strategy improvements, okay? Improving how we deliver to folks, timing of day, responsiveness of emails, okay? And that's a technology aspect of MDR when we deploy it for our clients. But the other aspect of this improved deliverability is size of campaigns, because we find when it comes to deliverability and also engagement, size really does matter. And here's a graph, and it's not the whole graph, but I think it really makes the point that we see that the smaller the campaign size, the better the overall engagement from both the delivery rate aspect but also an open rate aspect, okay? And we really see that first big jump happen at 50,000 emails or less in a campaign. This doesn't mean that, hey, I got to send out 1 million emails, that you still can't send out 1 million emails, but the day of, and we've all been there, I've been doing email marketing for well over 15 years. I'm sure there's a lot of very experienced people on this call doing email marketing. The days of, wow, that creative, I just got approved, that I needed approval rates, needed to get approved a week ago, I just got today, and I need to get that promotion out to 1 million people this afternoon. You know, those days of that type of behavior will really impact your overall results of your email marketing. So it's really important to think about that and the cadence of how you're delivering to your prospect emails, because we've worked with a lot of our clients changing that cadence, and without changing creative or goals or KPIs and really just thinking about the cadence of how they're sending out their emails, have really been able to show them drastic results. And it holds true the smaller and smaller you get. You know, 30,000 does a lot better than 40,000. You know, 20,000 does a lot better than 30. 2,000 does a lot better than 10,000. 500 does a lot better than 1,200. So really think about the campaign size, you know. And a lot of companies, a lot of tools out there, and even MDR are now getting to the point where they'll ask you, hey, what time frame do you want to deliver this campaign over? Because it gives them the opportunity to really optimize the best delivery rates for you. And another thing that we see an improvement on, not just delivery rate with smaller campaign size, is also open rates. Now that, in my opinion, is a great indicator of inbox placement. Because if you're sending out the same exact creative and just changing your cadence and all of a sudden you're getting higher open rates, logic would dictate, hey, it's getting in more inboxes, so hence better inbox placement and you're getting more opens. So that's campaign size. Now, let's talk about email engagement rates. Now, those are the open rates, the click-through rates, all that fun stuff, which is really ultimately the goal of any email campaign. So here's a year over year. And this is really just throwing everything in the pot from our, because we do a lot of trigger email campaigns where, you know, hey, we do a follow-up email based upon activity. It's different between higher ed and K through 12, but these are just a high level, throwing everything in the pot, seeing what those averages are. So as you can see, big improvement 2016, 2017 in regards to open rates. Now, click-through rates have stayed pretty consistent. Now, this really shows us, because at MDR here, we're really a deployment vendor for our clients, okay? We do help some of our clients with creative, but the overwhelming majority is clients creative. So this really drives a point, is really we need to be rethinking our creative. And we'll talk a little bit about that, some trends that we're seeing, and some points that may be able to help you improve those overall click-through rates as well. So let's talk about delivery rates, open rates, and click-through rates by industry. So we broke down the open rates and click-through rates by K through 12 and higher ed, but also by different industries. So as you can see, overall, K through 12, the overall delivery rate, just like previously said, this year was a little over 93%. You know, with higher ed, it was a little over 97%. Now, open rates, as you can see, everything kind of skews. You get the higher delivery, higher open rates, higher click-through rates on the higher ed side. You know, it changes a little bit as far as industry, but overall the trend is towards higher ed. Now, this was insightful for us because it really made us think about why is this happening. And ultimately, higher ed, just naturally marketing to the higher ed arena, tends to be more focused and segmented. Something that we commonly run into in the education space is that somebody wants to market K through 12 or K through 6, and they'll send the same creative to an entire elementary school teachers of K through 6. Well, a 6th grade or a 5th grade teacher is dealing with a lot different things than a kindergarten teacher or a 1st grade teacher. So even though the tools applicable to them, how you talk to them, you know, the value add to them changes a little bit, and those subtleties change, okay? Higher ed's a little bit different because just by its nature, our clients, when they are marketing to higher ed, they're focusing on certain departments or departments' heads. So by its nature, it's more segmented and the message is more focused than typically a K through 12 type marketing is. And then we also looked at delivery rate, open rate, click-through rate by peer group. So we looked at higher education leadership, higher education faculty, K through 12 leadership, K through 12 faculty. So, you know, just using K through 12 as an example, principals, superintendents, you know, K through 12 faculty, teachers, and other support staff around those lines. And once again, things do have a tendency to skew higher towards the higher ed. And once again, we really believe that just by its nature, those promotional emails tend to be a lot more focused, a lot more segmented, and ultimately, too, since it's a lot more focused and a lot more segmented, those campaign sizes typically, on average, are smaller as well. So higher ed, as far as marketing into the higher ed, really has that trifecta going on of a successful email campaign. So moving along. So now this, when we were doing this report, this was probably, this part as far as device usage was probably some of the most interesting data for me, where I was really, not surprised, but really taken aback how clear it was on some tactics that people need to use. So let's talk about device usage a little bit. So here's total opens by device type. And this really isn't groundbreaking. You know, most stats and everything you see out there, even with website usability, you know, these are the typical trends. So we see about half of all the people that open an email, about 50% of them are on a laptop desktop. For mobile devices, we see about 40% are on a mobile device. And for opens, we see about 10% are on a tablet. Now, this was really the interesting part for me. When we now look at clicks by device, look at that shift. So even though desktop and laptop is 50% of all opens, it's 90% of all clicks that are occurring, okay? Even though the mobile devices are about 40% of all opens, they're only a little over 7% of all clicks. And tablets carry along that trend of being about 10 or 11% of all opens, but they're only a little under 2% of all clicks. And further driving along device usage, and something to think about, we looked at how many devices somebody looks at an individual email on. And this is what we found. We openly found that 1 out of every 5 people that open an email look at that email on 2 or more devices. So that's, the typical thing, standing online at the grocery store, going through your email, going, hey, that's interesting, going home, looking at it on your laptop or desktop, or vice versa, or looking at it on your tablet. Okay, so we've seen that 1 out of every 5 people that open an email look on an individual email on 2 or more devices. This is huge, and this really drives home the point of how important it is to consider all devices and platforms when you're sending out your email. And when we work with clients, that's typically where a big quick win is really simplifying that design so it displays well on your laptop, desktop, displays well in an email, displays well on a tablet, and really has good usability to allow that awesome click-through rate. Okay? And in the upcoming report, we do delve into this a little bit deeper and give some tips and things that we've seen that's really been able to drastically improve overall open rates and click-through rates by just making some real simple changes to overall email designs. Now, just staying on this idea of that you have to consider all devices and platforms when you put together your email, there's really some major 3 ones that, especially in marketing to educators, you really need to think about. First off, Outlook. Now, a lot of you know, and I know, and many people know, anybody that uses Outlook, the default setting for Outlook in the inbox is to block all images. Now, how many of people on this phone, your email has a big logo, your logo in the left corner, a big hero image, and the first third of your email ultimately is images? Well, if those images get blocked, somebody opens that email in Outlook, they really don't know what the email's about, and you're probably not going to get a good click-through rate. So just by doing things like a simple text headline above that hero image that people know, hey, this is the value add, this is why I should care, can greatly improve your overall engagement. Gmail. So once again, Gmail, more and more people that are marketing educators know this, and this isn't really unique to the education space as well. More and more people are using Gmail. And Google applications. And Google's doing a great job of getting it engaged with school districts to have them using Google applications for things like their email and things like, Google in the Classroom, YouTube, all those great products that they put out for free, okay? And because of that, email marketing to teachers is impacted by Google. And Google has admitted publicly, if they see a big, large image in an email, they assume it's a promotion and treat it as such. And we've done a lot of testing where just some great content and just removing the large images has greatly improved open and click-through rates, okay? So you need to be thinking about those images once again. And then finally, when you do your testing, it's really important to make sure that you're testing it across devices. Looking at it on a laptop, looking at it on a desktop, looking at it on somebody's mobile phone, looking on a tablet, and really getting a sense of the experience. Is that text very easy to read? That's a common thing. If you're using 9, 10, 11 pixel-sized text, that's going to be real hard to read on a mobile device. If you have buttons that are tiny, remember, when you're on a mobile device, how do you click on things? You're using your thumb, so you really want to have a pixel size of about 44 pixels by 44 pixels or larger. Once again, when you're looking at something on a mobile device, to fit it all in, a lot of times those emails can become extremely long. Does somebody have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until you get to the point when they look at it on a mobile device, okay? Those are all things that you should really be thinking about. So now we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about days of the week and time of day. And this is an email marketer. I probably get asked this question about 2 or 3 times a week, okay? So we're going to take you through, once again, we're going to compare year over year, okay, and give you some insights from that. So we looked at highest and lowest total clicks and open rates by day. And here how it breaks out. So in 2015, really the best day for open and click-through rates was Wednesday. The worst day for engagement was Saturday. 2016, Tuesday was the best day for engagements. Saturday, once again, not the best day for engagements. And then finally, 2017, best day for engagements was Thursday. And once again, Saturday was the worst day for engagements. Now, we're putting this up, and once again, this is looking at the 400 million emails that we analyzed. I do like to put a note in here, okay? This is a high level looking at everybody. You really should be testing day of the week. I cannot stress that enough. I was very lucky in my previous position to be director of digital marketing for a publisher that really had 30 niche audiences that were very clearly identified. And there were some audiences, middle of the week, middle of the day was the best time to reach them. There was other audiences where Sunday morning was an awesome time to reach them. So even though overall averages, this is what we're seeing, this is something that's very easy to test, and I highly encourage everybody to test that. And then here's how it breaks out by total open rate by time of day. Now, this is East Coast time. So just for an example, if you're seeing 5 p.m. here, East Coast, then we're really talking 2 o'clock West Coast. Okay? And as you can see, once again, we're sending to teachers at their work email addresses. So as you can see, as the workday progresses, our engagements get higher and higher, higher ed K through 12. As the workday, starts ending, our engagements go down. So as you can see, really here, the typical advice, middle of the week, middle of the day, really holds true for both higher ed and K through 12. Now we took it a little bit further and started looking at this by device. Okay, so total open rate by time of day and device. And this was actually interesting, and this really holds along the point that of really thinking about all the different devices people engage with email on. Because as you can see, during work hours, they're using a desktop. After work hours, that shift slowly starts happening over to mobile devices. So once again, if you're really not thinking about all the devices that your creative is going to be displaying on, you're really losing a lot of opportunity there. So before I hand it over to Sean to talk a little bit about digital advertising, so just once again, the big takeaways from what we've just gone through is really think about your campaign size. The smaller the better. We see improved delivery rates. We see improved open rates. But also, once again, really think about how your creative is displaying on multiple devices. It's really important, and there's probably a big win for you there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Sean McLeod. He's in charge of all the digital advertising deployments over here at MDR, and he's going to take you through some of the findings of the digital advertising aspect of the upcoming report.
Thank you, Dave. Hello, everyone. So when we start talking about the digital advertising metrics that we have in our digital trends report, I think a good first step is going to be walking through what traditional digital advertising is, and then what the digital advertising is that we do here at MDR that will help guide us through the metrics that we're looking at as we start getting into the graphs. So as we start, we're looking right now at paid search marketing. This is something you'll find on Google typically, or Bing if you're a non-Google user. And this is time of intent marketing, right? This is when you want to catch somebody when they're ready to buy something. The next version we have is Facebook marketing. So Facebook marketing, as I'm sure many of you do, is going to be driven by interest. So you go into Facebook and you say, I want someone who is a teacher who's interested in English products or who's interested in technology at a K-12 level, and then you start serving ads to people who have shown interest in those items. And as you can see here on the slide, we did some testing of our own, and we found that Facebook has identified about 14 million people in the K-12 educator audience in the United States. Now, we know from common knowledge and publicly available resources that there's only around 7 million educators in the U.S. So with that, taking that into account, you know that using Facebook Insights, you're not necessarily hitting the audience you want to hit. The last form, before we get into the MDR display advertising, is traditional display advertising. And this is when you're buying from a publisher and you're getting space on a specific site. So you can see here in our example, we've got TechCrunch up there, and let's say you're trying to reach that K-12 tech director. You might buy space on TechCrunch, and you say, you know what, I'm hoping that the K-12 tech director ends up on TechCrunch and sees my ad, right? So with time of intent Google-based marketing, with Facebook Insight marketing, and with traditional publisher display advertising, you're always hoping to find the right audience. When we start looking at MDR's display advertising, we start with the audience. And that's going to really inform the information that we look at coming up, because we know that when we put your ads online or our customer ads online, we're starting with the proper audience. So if it's K-12 tech directors and we're on TechCrunch, we're on TechCrunch because the K-12 tech director is there. If we're showing an ad on the Facebook newsfeed, we're showing that ad because we know the audience member is there. So now we're not targeting TechCrunch visitors or 14 million people on Facebook. We're targeting by job title, by geography, by interaction, and we're targeting by any other factor that we can pass through our data set and produce an audience online for. So what does that look like in practice? Well, when we start talking about social audiences and Facebook advertising, we're able to determine that on average people will experience a 0.73% click-through rate in Facebook ads when targeting educators. That is actually a great click-through rate. But when you start with the audience, we're able to double it, right? So using the audience targeting, starting on the step 3 of saying, this is the K-12 tech director and this is the ad I want them to see, you're going to see on average a 1.32% click-through rate. When we get into display advertising, which we're going to take a deeper dive into here, education industry online is about 0.08% click-through rate for display advertising, which, although smaller than Facebook, is still a great click-through rate. Educators are a great audience to market to. But when you start with the audience, right, you're not hoping for the audience, you're starting with the audience, you're going to see about a 0.3% click-through rate online. So that's being on TechCrunch when the K-12 tech director is there. But you know what? It's beyond that. It's not just TechCrunch. It's in Yahoo Mail when the tech director is there. It's on CNN.com when the tech director is there. It's identifying your audience and making sure that you're following them around the web. So how do we know we're following them around the web? Well, we can look at the devices that we're serving on. So as you can see on the left-hand side, if you look at impressions by device, we've got about 42% of the time we are on users' smartphones, and 46% of the time we're on their desktop computers. So this is really an insight into where the audience is, because we're only ever targeting the same audience. So we know that they're spending about half their time on their smartphone and half their time on their desktop. When we look at clicks, we could see that we're actually getting about a third from smartphones, a third from laptops and desktops, and almost a third from tablets, which is only 8% of the impressions by device. And this is representative of having the ads in front of users when they're available for the click. So this is Sunday afternoon while they're watching football, or this is Friday night when they're laying in bed watching their favorite television program, right? This is when they have time to act, and we could see that because it's really only 8% of the time generating 31% of the clicks. And that's about being ubiquitous in the user's online experience. So now we know that we're in front of the audience, no matter what device they're on. How do we make sure that we are getting the best rates of clicks that we can? Well, we looked at it in a couple of different ways. One way is the size of your campaign. What we see in this graph is that campaigns serving under 50,000 impressions have a much higher click-through rate than you're going to see with a campaign serving over 300,000 impressions. And you get diminishing returns the longer your campaign goes. Typically, I know from the structure of how we run campaigns, the more impressions you have, the longer your campaign's lifespan is. So over that longer period of time, you're going to get diminishing returns on your creative. When you run smaller campaigns, you're getting up into the audience's space, you're showing them your messaging. If they're ready to take action, they do, and if they're not ready to take action, they won't, time and time again. So how does this look from a creative angle? Well, you could see here that the more ads you run over the lifespan of your campaign, the better results you're going to see. So this is about complacency, right? We don't want to serve over a long period of time with a few ads and just accept the diminishing returns. We want to continually enter new creative into the process. So when we say 7 to 9 ads, we're not talking about all at once. We're talking about over the lifespan of a campaign. Now, we had an outlier customer who didn't make it into this graph because they were really a standalone. They ended up serving 32 ads during the lifespan of their campaign. And that was not simultaneous, it was consecutive. So we'd serve 4 to 5 ads, we'd learn which ones performed, take out the underperformers, and then put 4 to 5 more ads in. And we did that through the lifespan of their campaign, and we're able to generate some of the highest click-through rates that we have on behalf of customers. And it's all about learning and growing with the performance of your ads.
Now, Sean, just for a second, before we move away from this, because you talked a lot about optimizing ads, and us seeing that, hey, the more ads you have, the more you're optimizing. But couldn't we also take from this that with smaller ad smaller ad campaign sizes and more ads, you're also avoiding ad blindness? So, you know, hey, if somebody saw an ad 10 times and didn't click on it, are they going to click on it the next 10 times they see it? Would that be a logical conclusion to make?
Absolutely. Yeah, you want to keep your advertising fresh because once they've sort of seen your ad and decided not to click, they're going to decide not to click throughout the lifespan of your campaign. Unless you change up your ad, you refocus your audience, and it's really about learning from your audience. You let them tell you what they want to respond to. You're not telling the audience what you want them to respond to. So great point. Thank you, Dave. Now, we've looked at devices that we're serving on. We've looked at the size of a campaign that we're serving. Now let's take a look at the 4 ad sizes that we typically serve in our display advertising campaign. And that is the 300 by 250, 728 by 90, 160 by 600, and the little sliver there, 180 by 250. Now, 728 by 90 is more commonly referred to as a leaderboard. That's going to be the top of a web page when you're surfing the web. Those are the long, not so tall ads that you will be at the top of almost every web page you visit. The 300 by 250 is going to be the ads that pop up in-app on your mobile devices. And you can see that these sizes are actually lining up with the percentage of impressions we're serving on desktop versus smartphone. And that's because 300 by 250 is predominantly a smartphone size, and 728 by 90 is predominantly a desktop size. 160 by 600 are the long skyscraper ads that you have on the side of a web page. And 180 by 250 are what we call a small rectangle that will be put in oftentimes towards the bottom of pages or also mixed into article content. The inventory is very small on that one. But it's important to include because 180 by 250 generates our largest click-through rates by far. So while it's only 1% of our impressions, on average that size is going to generate 1.45% of your clicks. And this is really important to note because it speaks to taking advantage of every opportunity that presents itself online to serve to your audience. When you start with the audience, you're never wasting impressions. So you want to make sure that if there's 4 ad sites available to you, you're getting every click that is possible to gather. And if you're ignoring the 180 by 250 because you have smaller opportunity, then you're missing out on actually a great deal of clicks. And when, as anybody who's doing display advertising knows, every click counts in this space. So although it's a smaller inventory for 180 by 250, you're going to want to make sure you capitalize on every opportunity that that ad size comes up. So moving forward, I believe we're going to go into a question and answer session.
Yep, absolutely. Great, Sean. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So we're going to open. I've actually been sitting over here going through questions as Sean was talking. We got quite a few. So just a heads up to everybody, if we don't get to everything, you know, we will respond, okay? Somebody will respond to you if it's not either myself or Sean. Of course, you know, our contact information's up there, so feel free to contact us as well. And there's really been quite a few questions. And I'm, once again, opening the floor to everybody. That question box is right in the bottom right-hand corner. And if we don't get to everybody, I'll let you know. First off, there's been a few questions been asked a few times about the report itself, okay? Yes, everybody that's registered will be receiving the report in their email, okay, when it's released, which will be this month. And once again, this was just meant to be a preview, some high-level observations that we saw, and of course the report has a lot more in it, okay? Another question that we received over here was about campaign size and why that does better, okay? And I do want to take a little bit and talk through the logic of that, okay? And I'm going to tell everybody on this call a little secret that nobody wants you to know, okay? At the end of the day, the only thing that really any email service provider can really look at is delivery rates at the end of the day, okay? When it comes to lists, nobody really knows if something's an opt-in list, if something's not an opt-in list. What they're really judging is the quality of delivery rates. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of people are on this call using a lot of different platforms, and it changes platform by platform. Some platforms are a lot more strict than others. But typically, as long as you're above 90, 95% of your delivery rates, you really don't run into challenges, okay? Now, how does that relate to why do smaller campaigns perform better, okay? Now, I'll give you an example of my previous life. I built in an opt-in list for a newsletter of 350,000 folks, okay? And probably consistently our open rates for the newsletter aspect of it was well over 50% every week, okay? So hugely highly engaged people getting exactly what they wanted, okay? Now, in about 2015, I started seeing my delivery rates go down and go down significantly, and overall engagements go down significantly. And that was back in the day where I could say, hey, I want to send these 350,000 emails today. A lot of times I was working on that newsletter 15 minutes before I sent it out, okay? So what's happening there? And what do the email service providers have at their disposal to what type of behavior can they look at to judge promotional emails versus other emails? Well, one of that is how many emails are coming from this sending domain to my domain, okay? So this is where the logic builds out. And just think about it, okay? If you were that person trying to, in a programmatic way, an algorithmic way, trying to figure out if something was promotional or not, if all of a sudden you saw from one sending domain, all of a sudden 1,000 emails, 2,000 emails, 10,000, 20, 30, 40, 100,000 emails coming, does that look natural to you, okay? No, chances are it's promotional, okay? Now, nobody knows what that threshold is. You know, nobody puts out there what that threshold is, and we can just go from the data that we see as those campaigns get smaller and smaller and smaller, those delivery rates get better and better and better, okay? So that's really the logic and the science behind that. And that holds true across opt-in lists, that holds true across promotional lists, and that's why a lot of providers are asking you the question. You're able to set up splitting up your list over time, because the reality is, if you're sending hundreds of thousands of emails from one sending domain to domains, it looks very promotional. You know, that's the same thing why big, large emails in Gmail don't look good, because when was the last time you wrote to your friend and embedded a huge, humongous image in that email and did it 1,000 times to 1,000 different people on Gmail, okay? It looks very promotional, okay? So that's some of the logic behind it of why smaller campaigns typically work better, and we're seeing that, and the data really backs it up. Now, another question that I wanted to address, and maybe Sean can hop on this one, was asking about Facebook and the recent algorithm updates, okay? Now, the big headline is, if you were doing a great job on Facebook and had a great organic presence on Facebook, in summary, you really don't have anything to worry about, okay? But with that being said, Sean can go into that a little bit more, and also how that impacts advertising on Facebook as well.
Sure. Yeah, so Dave hit a really good high note on that, about that if you're doing a good job on Facebook, chances are you're already following the best practice that Facebook's trying to instill in its users. We've seen from our social channels that the way that we put out social content is incredibly engaging, and so we actually are seeing an uptick in Facebook as other pages are seeing their engagement go down. And it's really about providing quality content and engaging content. Facebook wants users to feel comfortable in the space and want to use the space. So if you're contributing positively to the Facebook environment, you're going to be great with the Facebook changes. Now, as that applies to ads, it's actually a very similar answer. Your advertising on Facebook needs to be engaging, and it needs to be providing value. If you're getting clicks, if you're getting engagement on your advertising, that's what Facebook wants. It's all about improving the life cycle of a Facebook user and not feeling draining, not feeling like an ad. So my best encouragement is test and learn. And I know it gets boring because I say that all the time, but it's really let the audience tell you what they like, and then continue to provide advertising and content that they like, and you will be fine in the new Facebook environment.
And you actually, I kind of said it, but you kind of said it, and this is something we kind of didn't address, but I think is extremely important. Whether you're talking about digital advertising or social advertising or email, you know, what's really important that you always need to be keeping in mind as well is the landing page you're driving folks to. You know, this is really top of mind right now because we just recently, one of our display advertising clients, you know, was getting awesome click-through rates, awesome engagement rates, great CPM pricing, everything was great. Their conversions were not great at all, you know, and we're trying to walk through it, and we're looking at our audiences, how we could, and then we looked at their landing page on a mobile device, and it was completely unusable. Okay, so that's something to really think about as well, okay, is you could be getting great click-through rates through your Facebook content and your Facebook advertising or your web advertising or email advertising. If the user experience isn't good on that page, whether that be through content or design, you're not going to get great results. And landing pages are often that lever you can pull that improves results across all properties. Another question that we had right now was about subject lines. Okay, what are we seeing? And in the full digital trends report, we do talk about this a little bit and actually do a case study around subject lines. Like, what are certain things that you're seeing time and time again really help open rates and click-through rates? One thing that we see that pretty much every single time, and I just ran another test with a client last week where it was really striking the difference, is using job title and geography in the subject line. You know, we capture all that data, we have all that information, and just going, hey, this is awesome, you should try it, okay, but saying, hey, you know, third-grade teachers in North Carolina, this is awesome, you should try it, the open rates go through the roof, okay, compared to a more generic term, and also the click-through rates go through the roof as well. So because the right people are opening it and they're engaged. So a big takeaway as far as subject lines, because somebody asked a direct question regarding that, is that if you have job title and geography in those subject lines, we do see a better open rate and a better click-through rate by just making that quick change. And I'm a big believer. Subject lines are some of the easiest things to test that can help your email marketing the most. You don't have to go to a designer. Usually you don't have to go to 3 rounds of approval. It's something that you can very easily test. And think about it. You could have the best creative, the best content, have 100% inbox placement. If that subject line doesn't entice people to open that email, all the other stuff doesn't matter. Okay? So, you know, those are 2 things that we see consistently work great in subject lines. And somebody asked, staying on the deployment aspect and the delivery and keeping smaller campaigns, is there a way to increase delivery, open, and click-through rates by changing the way you deploy campaigns? Could you do multiple deployments of the same campaign but to smaller lists with each then? Absolutely, okay? And another thing that we do a lot of things over here. Like one thing, we do cadence of our emails sometimes based off of responsiveness to previous promotions, okay? Any way you can break it up, get more focus to those emails, the better, okay? So once again, the big thing is the overall size. That's a quick win for most people, is just reducing that size of that campaign. And then there was because we're about out of time, and there was one more. There was a couple more, actually, but one was about images in emails, okay? And this is a big one because, big, large images, you don't want to use them. I don't want that to be the takeaway. Don't use images in your email. You should be testing and seeing what's going on and thinking about the user engagement, you know? It's sometimes very easy to paint in a broad stroke that's saying, hey, this is exactly what we should do, you know? You should really be testing it because let's face it, let's say having a large image, you get a lower deliverability rate, and let's say your open rates go down 2%. But if having that large image in your email improves your click-through rates 20%, I don't know. Sounds like a good argument for a big image there. And it all depends, okay? So you really need to, first off, really identify what your goals are and how you're measuring results, and really see the cause and effect and how the other elements work. And there's other webinars that we've done on testing, landing page testing, email testing that we have out there. And we'll probably do again this year, but also feel free to reach out to either Sean or I to talk about it a little bit more. But as long as it's statistically significant and you can duplicate it, I would test it, okay? So once again, these are high-level best practices we see. It's not the end-all, be-all. And I really want people to think of it that way, as like, hey, these are something we should be testing and seeing how it impacts our results and how we can get better results.
I will add to that, sending smaller deployments is a great way to test. So you can start to combine some of the tips that Dave's giving where you're doing smaller deployments, and each smaller deployment tests something that you want to learn how your audience reacts to.
And another question that we had, too, is somebody asked, okay, it's great to see higher delivery rates, and they might have asked this at the beginning of the webinar, and I'm kind of skipping around, folks. I'm sorry, there's been just a ton of questions, so I'm really trying to pick stuff out here that catches my eye. And once again, we'll get back to everybody. But somebody asked, hey, have you improved deliverability, but have you been seeing better open and click-through? Absolutely. You know, with improved deliverability, you're going to get improved open rates and click-through rates. And let's see if I can pick out one more. Did I delete something? No, of course not. All right. Well, we'll just wrap it up for now, okay? Once again, thank you, everyone, for attending. We will respond to all questions that were asked. Also, feel free to reach out to us. And this was a preview of our upcoming Digital Trends Report, which will delve into a lot of these subjects a lot more and actually talk about some best practices and things that we've seen that improve overall results. So I'll keep the screen up for another minute or two, okay? But thank you for attending. We had a great turnout for this. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Sean. Thank you to unsung heroes like Marta, who's also in the room, who put this all together. And have a great day.
Thank you.